John Vogel, what is the level of interest of investors from Islamic countries for the US market, and in which area do they invest?
Most of the investors still have a strong interest in real estate. They tend to prefer the large commercial property. They sometimes will pick a large residential complex of apartments, but they prefer the commercial. They are also very active in fund investments. They will invest through a fund. Typically, that will be conventional financing as opposed to Islamic, although there have been some Islamic funds in the U.S. There's a feeling among Islamic investors that the values are quite good now in the U.S. because of the depression and of real estate prices. But on the other hand, there is also a concern. The concern is now twofold. One is because of the failure of our capita, which was a very active investor in a number of companies. They would typically Islamically invest working capital. They even made several acquisitions Islamically in the U.S. They went down, and that has been made quite a ripple in the Islamic investments. The other is a concern for the fear factor, which unfortunately is still quite high in the U.S. In that so many people are concerned about jihadism and Islamicism, and that's been put a damper on many of the investments as well.
And would you say that the U.S. are more attractive to Islamic Asian or Arabic investors?
I think Gulf and Arab investors are probably more interested. The Asian Islamic investors, although they certainly do have, particularly the sovereign wealth funds, do have a number of U.S. investments, they tend for some reason to go to Canada as a location for some Islamic investments, and maybe that's because the Canadians are more laid back. I'm not sure.
Accepted. And typically, which type of U.S. corporations would be interested to invest in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia?
Of course, typically you would get the natural resource companies and the many companies associated with that type of business, the infrastructure companies. But there's also been quite a significant move on the part of the high-tech companies, and also the medical and drug companies have been setting up beachfronts up out in the Gulf area, and also down in the Malaysia and Singapore area. And even Indonesia, more and more, some American companies have taken a position down there too.
And what would be your main advice to a U.S. corporation willing to invest in an Islamic country?
I'd say do a lot of due diligence initially. Of course, find a good lawyer, find a good accountant, and do extensive due diligence not only in the company that you may wish to invest in or the industry that you may wish to invest in, but also the country. There's one of the biggest problems that American companies have traditionally is they have the money available, they have the expertise, but they don't do the due diligence, and they end up setting up shop in an area that they're just not familiar with, and there are tremendous cultural disadvantages or dislocations, which cause as many problems as the economic dislocations.
Thank you very much, John Vogel.
Thank you, sir.